Welcome, and thank you for choosing to spend your quiet time with us. This audiobook novel has been crafted as a gentle companion, designed to help weave a peaceful atmosphere around you, creating a sanctuary of calm as you unwind or prepare for the end of your day. We hope it brings a soft stillness to your thoughts and a gentle ease to your spirit. In Fern Unfurling, Dewdrops on a Sill, we invite you to step into the quiet sunroom of Maeve's cottage. Here, where the light changes softly with the passing hours, we will share in her gentle observation of the small wonders that unfold, from the first green curve of a new plant to the tiny glistening dewdrops that catch the morning sun on the windowsill. It is a journey into the profound peace found in noticing the simple, beautiful details of the everyday. Should you find comfort here and wish for more moments like this, perhaps consider liking this audiobook novel and subscribing to our channel before you settle in fully and set your device aside. And now, please, allow yourself to relax, breathe gently, and begin the quiet journey into Fern Unfurling, Dewdrops on a Sill. Chapter 1, The First Green Curve. The very first light morning, a delicate wash of pale rose and soft gold was just beginning to touch the eastern sky. It seeped quietly into Maeve's sunroom, not yet with warmth, but with a gentle promise of the day to come. The large window panes facing towards the awakening woodland were misted on their outer surface, each droplet a tiny, imperfect lens capturing the nascent dawn. Upon the wide, smooth stone sill, a collection of potted plants rested in varying shades of green, their forms still softened by the dim light. Among them, a small fern in a simple terracotta pot held a particular focus this morning. Maeve entered the sunroom with a hush that matched the hour, her bare feet making almost no sound on the cool slate tiles of the floor. The air in the room was still, carrying the faintest scent of damp earth from the pots, a clean, mineral fragrance that spoke of quiet growth. She moved with an unhurried grace, her presence a calm addition to the room's inherent tranquility. Her gaze went immediately to the small fern. Yesterday, she had noticed the barest hint of a new beginning, and now, in the gentle light, it was undeniably there. A tiny, tightly coiled spiral of the freshest, most tender green, nestled deep within the existing fronds. It was the first green curve of a new life, a miniature shepherd's crook, full of silent potential. She leaned closer, her breath soft so as not to disturb the stillness. The dewdrops on the outside of the window caught her eye, each one a perfect, glistening sphere. Some were larger, trembling slightly as if with a memory of the night's coolness, while others were mere pinpricks of moisture, scattered like tiny stars across the glass. They distorted the view of the trees beyond into wavering patterns of dark and light, a natural shifting mosaic. The world outside was slowly stirring. A single tentative chirp from an early bird floated in, a delicate sound that seemed to hang in the cool air for a moment before dissolving. A quiet purpose guided Maeve towards a corner of the sunroom where her gardening implements were neatly stored. She selected a small watering can, its surface a muted silver cool to her touch. The metal felt smooth and familiar in her hand. She carried it to the small utility sink tucked away in the sunroom, the sound of the tap turning a brief, soft rush in the quiet. Water flowed, cool and clear, into the can, its weight growing steadily in her grasp. She turned off the tap, the cessation of sound returning the room to its deeper hush, now punctuated only by the subtle gurgle of water settling within the can. Returning to the windowsill, Maeve paused before the fern. She tilted the watering can with a slow, deliberate movement. The water emerged from the spout in a gentle stream, darkening the dry, reddish-brown soil around the base of the plant. It pooled for a moment before sinking in, a soft, sighing sound accompanying its absorption. She watched as the moisture spread, turning the soil to a rich, dark umber. There was a simple satisfaction in this small act of nurture, a feeling of connection to the quiet, persistent life within the pot. The faint, earthy scent intensified for a moment, a clean and wholesome aroma. She ensured the soil was evenly moistened, not too much, just enough. The tiny coiled frond remained still, untouched by the water, a perfect spiral of nascent green. The light in the sunroom was growing now, the pale rose giving way to a clearer, brighter gold. More details were becoming visible, the fine veins on the older fern leaves, the subtle texture of the terracotta pot, the way the light caught the slightly uneven surface of the stone sill. Maeve straightened, taking a moment to observe the scene. The sunroom was her quiet sanctuary, a place where the boundary between inside and out felt pleasingly blurred. The dewdrops still clung to the window, but now they sparkled with a more defined light, catching the sun's early rays and scattering them in tiny, fleeting rainbows. The fern, freshly watered, seemed to hold a deeper shade of green, its new frond a small, potent symbol of the day's gentle unfolding. She felt a quiet sense of anticipation for the slow changes the day might bring to this tiny green curve, a peaceful awareness of life proceeding at its own unhurried pace. With a soft, lingering look at the fern, she turned, her bare feet carrying her quietly from the sunroom, leaving it to the growing light and the silent, steady work of nature. The first act of her day was complete, a gentle tending that set a tone of calm and quiet observation for the hours to come. The faint scent of damp earth and greenery lingered pleasantly in the air, a soft reminder of the life held within the sunlit space. Chapter 2. Sunlight on Tiny Hairs. Later that morning, the sun had climbed noticeably higher in the sky, its journey marked by the shifting patterns of light and shadow that moved across the sunroom floor. The initial coolness had given way to a gentle warmth, the kind that invites a lingering pause. Sunlight now streamed more directly through the large south-facing window, transforming the dewdrops still clinging to the outer pane into brilliant, multifaceted jewels. Each tiny sphere of water captured the light and refracted it, casting minute, dancing specks of color onto the windowsill and the leaves of the plants. Maeve returned to the sunroom, a soft, worn linen cloth held loosely in her hand. The condensation on the inside of the glass, a fine mist that had gathered overnight, now obscured the view slightly, blurring the sharp edges of the woodland beyond. It was a simple task, wiping the window clean, one she performed regularly, yet always with a gentle attentiveness. She approached the window where the small fern sat, its terracotta pot warmed by the sun's rays. As she reached to wipe the inner surface of the glass, her gaze fell once more upon the fern's newest frond. In the stronger, more direct light, a detail that had been almost invisible earlier was now revealed. The tightly coiled spiral, still mostly unfurled, was covered in minute silvery hairs, so fine they were like a delicate downy fuzz. Each tiny hair seemed to catch the sunlight independently, creating a soft, almost luminous halo around the curve of the nascent leaf. It was a breathtakingly delicate sight, a testament to the intricate, unseen work of growth. Maeve paused, her hand with the cloth hovering mid-air. She leaned closer, her eyes tracing the pattern of these tiny light-catching filaments. They followed the curve of the frond, giving it a soft, almost velvety appearance despite its tender newness. The fern, which had seemed simply green and coiled before, now possessed an added layer of complexity, a subtle texture revealed only by the angle of the light and a moment of still observation. The world outside, with its sparkling dewdrops and the clear forms of trees, momentarily receded as her focus narrowed to this miniature marvel. The room was filled with the quiet hum of a house in the late morning, perhaps the distant rhythmic tick of a grandfather clock in another room, or the very faint sigh of the old timbers settling. These were sounds so familiar they were almost part of the silence, a backdrop to the sunroom's peaceful atmosphere. The warmth of the sun through the glass was gentle on her skin as she stood there, absorbed in the sight of the fern. Slowly she brought the cloth to the window pane. The soft linen glided across the cool glass, and with each swipe, the fine mist of condensation vanished, leaving behind a clear, unobstructed view. The dewdrops on the outside now appeared even sharper, more brilliant against the deep green of the distant trees. The act of cleaning the window was gentle, almost rhythmic. The soft rub of cloth on glass, a quiet, satisfying sound. She worked her way across the pane, her movements unhurried, her attention still partly with the tiny, illuminated hairs of the fern frond. With the window now clear, the light seemed to pour into the sunroom with even greater intensity, though still soft and diffused by the angle of the sun. The plants on the sill appeared brighter, their various greens more vivid. The small fern in particular seemed to bask in the clarity, its new frond a focal point of delicate beauty. The tiny hairs continued to catch the light, a subtle shimmer that changed as she shifted her own position slightly. Maeve stepped back for a moment, appreciating the newly clarified view and the way the sunlight now filled the space. The simple act of wiping the window had brought a renewed crispness to the scene, a quiet satisfaction in a task completed. The sunroom felt brighter, more open. She folded the linen cloth neatly, its texture soft and slightly nubby beneath her fingers, and placed it on a small wooden shelf nearby. Her gaze returned to the fern, a soft smile touching her lips. The unfurling was a slow, deliberate process, a quiet drama playing out on the windowsill. Each small change, each newly revealed detail like the sunlit hairs, was a reminder of the persistent, gentle energy of growth. The warmth in the room was comforting, a soft embrace. She felt the ease of the moment, the simple pleasure of being present in this sun-filled space, observing the quiet life unfolding before her. The day was progressing, marked not by urgency, but by the slow transit of the sun and the subtle changes in the world around her. Chapter 3. A sip of tea, a gentle breeze. Mid-afternoon arrived with a softened intensity to the sunlight. The fierce brightness of late morning had mellowed into a warmer, more golden glow that slanted through the sunroom windows, painting elongated rectangles of light upon the cool stone floor. Maeve found herself settled into a comfortable wicker chair, its woven structure creaking softly as she adjusted her position. The chair was old, a familiar presence in the sunroom, its curves worn smooth by time and use. Beside her, on a small round wooden table, sat a steaming cup of herbal tea, its pale amber liquid radiating a gentle warmth and a faint, sweet aroma of chamomile and honey. The window nearest her chair was open just a crack, a deliberate invitation to the outside air. A soft, almost languid breeze drifted in, carrying with it the subtle scents of the woodland in summer, a hint of warm pine, the dry fragrance of sun-baked earth, and the faintest whisper of distant wildflowers. This gentle current of air caused the more established fronds of the potted fern on the sill to sway, an almost imperceptible movement, a slow, rhythmic dance. The newest frond, still mostly coiled but noticeably more open than it had been that morning, remained relatively still, sheltered by its larger companions. Maeve lifted the teacup, its ceramic surface warm and smooth against her palms. The steam rose in delicate shifting tendrils, catching the light for a moment before disappearing into the air. She took a slow sip, the warmth spreading through her, the taste clean and soothing. Her gaze rested on the fern, observing its quiet presence. The tiny hairs she had noticed earlier were less prominent now that the direct sunlight had passed, but the frond itself had unfurled just a fraction more. The elegant curve was beginning to straighten, revealing more of its intricate structure. The sunroom was a haven of peaceful sounds. The gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the other plants dotted around the room, a tall, slender ficus in the corner, a trailing ivy whose leaves brushed against the windowsill. Occasionally, the breeze would carry the distant sound of children's laughter from a neighboring garden, a fleeting, happy murmur that added to the sense of peaceful domesticity rather than intruding upon it. The primary sound, however, was the subtle whisper of the wind itself, a constant, gentle sigh. She watched the play of light and shadow on the stone floor, patterns that shifted with an almost imperceptible slowness as the sun continued its westward journey. Dust motes, invisible moments before, danced in the slanted beams of light, tiny golden specks performing a silent ballet. The warmth of the tea in her hands, the soft pressure of the wicker chair supporting her, the gentle sounds and scents filling the air, all contributed to a deep sense of calm, a quiet immersion in the present moment. Her attention drifted from the fern to the wider view through the now clear window. The trees of the woodland stood tall and serene, their leaves 100 shades of green. A single fluffy white cloud drifted slowly across the expanse of blue sky, its edges soft and ethereal. There was no urgency in its movement, no hurry in the afternoon's gentle progression. Maeve allowed her gaze to soften, taking in the scene as a whole, feeling a part of this quiet, unfolding afternoon. Another sip of tea, its warmth a small, comforting anchor. She noticed the way the light caught the subtle texture of the wooden table beside her, highlighting the grain and the small imperfections that spoke of its history. The world was full of such quiet details, often overlooked in the rush of a busier day, but here in the stillness of the sunroom, they came gently to the fore. The fern, with its slow unfurling, was a perfect embodiment of this gentle pace. The breeze picked up for a moment, a slightly stronger puff of air that made the pages of an open book on a nearby shelf flutter softly. The sound was like a quiet chuckle. Maeve smiled faintly. The fern fronds swayed a little more noticeably, then settled back into their gentle rhythm. The new frond, she observed, had indeed opened a little more, Its tip was now distinctly separate from the main coil, pointing slightly outward as if tentatively exploring the space around it. This small, almost imperceptible change brought a quiet sense of satisfaction. She finished her tea, the last sip as warm and comforting as the first. The empty cup rested on the table, its purpose fulfilled. The sunroom remained a peaceful haven, bathed in the soft golden light of the declining afternoon. The gentle breeze continued its quiet conversation with the leaves, and the fern stood on the sill, a silent testament to the steady, unhurried progress of life. Maeve felt a sense of quiet contentment, a deep ease that settled into her bones, as profound and simple as the warmth of the sun and the taste of honeyed tea. Chapter 4. Tracing the outline. As evening began to draw its soft cloak over the landscape, the light within the sunroom underwent another transformation. The golden hues of late afternoon deepened, taking on shades of apricot and soft rose, casting long, gentle shadows that stretched across the stone floor. The air grew cooler, carrying the fresh, damp scent of approaching twilight from the woodland. It was the time of day when the world outside seemed to hold its breath, a quiet interlude between the activity of the day and the stillness of the night. Maeve found herself drawn back to the windowsill, her day gently winding down. She moved with the same quiet deliberation that had characterized her morning visit, her presence harmonious with the sunroom's increasingly tranquil atmosphere. Her focus, once again, was the small fern. In the softening light, its form seemed both more delicate and more defined. The new frond, which had been a tight coil at dawn, was now noticeably more open. Its journey of unfurling had progressed steadily, quietly, throughout the day. The elegant curve had relaxed further, and the delicate serrated edges of the miniature leaflets were becoming clearly visible along its length. She leaned in, her gaze intent. The silvery hairs she had admired in the morning sunlight were now less apparent, subdued by the diffuse evening light, but the structure they adorned was more revealed. It was a perfect miniature replica of the larger, mature fronds, yet imbued with a special tenderness, a vulnerability that spoke of its newness. There was an exquisite precision to its design, from the gentle taper of its tip to the even spacing of its emerging leaflets. Almost without conscious thought, Maeve raised her hand. Her index finger, moving with an incredible gentleness, hovered just above the surface of the small frond. She didn't touch it, not quite, but traced its outline in the air, following its delicate curves and points. It was an act of quiet appreciation, a way of acknowledging its perfect form. She could almost feel the slight coolness that might radiate from its surface. Imagine the subtle texture of its nascent leaflets, though she refrained from making actual contact, respecting its delicate state. The sounds from outside were muted now. The cheerful bird song of morning had given way to the occasional softer call of an evening bird, perhaps a robin settling in for the night. The distant rustle of leaves in the woodland seemed to carry a different quality in the evening air, a drier, more whispering sound. The sunroom itself felt cocooned in peaceful quiet, the house around it settling into its nightly rhythm. The only light within the room came from the fading day outside, painting the plants and furniture in soft, shadowed tones. Maeve straightened slightly, her hand lowering. She looked at the fern as a whole, noting how the new frond, though still small, now contributed more noticeably to the plant's overall shape. It was reaching out, claiming its small space in the world. There was a profound sense of stillness in this observation, a quiet marveling at the silent, persistent forces of nature. The terracotta pot felt cool beneath her fingertips as she rested her hand briefly on its rim. She thought back to the morning, to the tightly coiled spiral she had first observed. The changes throughout the day had been subtle, almost imperceptible if one were not paying close attention, yet cumulatively they represented a significant unfolding. It was a reminder that growth often happens in these quiet, incremental steps, unseen and unheard, but undeniably present. The last vestiges of color were fading from the western sky, visible as a soft glow through the sunroom windows. The shapes of the trees outside becoming darker, more silhouetted against the deepening twilight. The air held a distinct coolness now, a freshness that hinted at the dew that would soon begin to form. Maeve felt a sense of gentle completion, not of a task, but of a day's quiet observation. The fern had been her companion in stillness, its slow unfurling a gentle rhythm to which she had attuned her own quiet moments. She lingered for another minute, simply being present in the hushed atmosphere of the sunroom. The scent of damp earth from the pots seemed a little richer in the cool evening air. The peace of the room was deep, almost tangible. It was a space that encouraged reflection, or perhaps more accurately, a simple, unburdened awareness. With a final soft look at the fern, its new frond now a delicate silhouette in the dimming light, Maeve turned to leave. The day's watch was ending, and the sunroom would soon be left to the deeper stillness of the night. Chapter 5. Night's stillness, Frond at rest. Night had fully descended, blanketing the cottage and the surrounding woodland in a profound and peaceful darkness. The only illumination in the sunroom now came from the moon, a slender silver crescent hanging in the inky sky, its gentle light filtering softly through the large window panes. This ethereal glow cast faint, elongated shadows of the window frames onto the stone floor and bathed the leaves of the potted plants in a soft, silvery sheen, transforming their familiar daytime greens into mysterious shades of gray and near black. Before retiring for the night, Maeve made one last quiet visit to the sunroom. She moved through the darkened cottage with a familiar ease, her footsteps light and barely audible on the wooden floors leading to the stone tiles of the sunroom. She didn't light any lamps, allowing her eyes to adjust to the gentle luminosity of the moonlight. The air in the sunroom was cool and still, carrying the faint, clean scent of night and the subtle fragrance of the plants at rest. Her gaze naturally sought out the small fern on the windowsill. It was now a dark, delicate silhouette against the moonlit glass. The new frond, which had been the focus of her attention throughout the day, was clearly visible, partially unfurled, its shape distinct even in the low light. It seemed to be resting, suspended in the stillness, having completed its day's quiet work of growing. The dewdrops that had sparkled on the outside of the sill in the morning light had long since evaporated or been absorbed by the cool night air, leaving the glass clear and showing the faint, distant stars beyond the trees. Maeve stood for a few moments, simply observing. The silence in the sunroom was deep, broken only by the almost inaudible hum of the old house settling around her, or perhaps the far-off, mournful hoot of an owl from deep within the woodland, a sound that only emphasized the encompassing stillness. The moonlight created a serene, almost magical atmosphere, lending an otherworldly beauty to the ordinary objects in the room. The wicker chair was a soft, rounded shadow. The other plants were sculptural forms, their leaves like intricate cutouts against the paler light from the window. She felt the coolness of the stone floor beneath her bare feet, a grounding sensation. The peace of the night was a different quality from the peace of the day. It was deeper, more profound, a stillness that invited a letting go. The fern, in its moonlit repose, seemed to embody this sense of quiet surrender to the rhythms of nature. Its daily journey of unfurling was paused, awaiting the return of the sun. There was a sense of gentle completion in this final observation. The day had been marked by this small, attentive moment, watching the fern, noticing the light, feeling the subtle shifts in the atmosphere. It had been a day of quiet presence, of finding wonder in the minute and the familiar. The fern's progress, however small, felt like a shared journey, a quiet companionship. Maeve allowed her breath to deepen, to match the slow, steady rhythm of the sleeping world around her. The coolness of the air was refreshing on her skin. She felt no need to linger long. The image of the fern resting in the moonlight was imprinted in her mind, a peaceful closing note to the day. The sunroom, bathed in this soft, silvery light, felt like a sanctuary, a place of deep calm and untroubled rest. With a soft, almost imperceptible nod toward the fern, a silent acknowledgement of its quiet presence, Maeve turned. Her movements were slow, careful not to disturb the profound stillness that filled the room. She left the sunroom to its nocturnal peace, the moonlight its sole guardian, the plants resting in its gentle glow. As she walked back through the quiet cottage, the image of the small unfurling frond, patiently awaiting the dawn, remained with her, a symbol of the quiet continuity of life and a gentle invitation to her own restful sleep.